I think it's getting harder to reach out to people and ask for help the more we're kind of being fed this girl boss, independent woman rhetoric, because it's adding this pressure onto us to have it all together and not need anybody else. We're learning to associate business and money and being behind a computer as, the cool thing to do, the empowering thing to do. If you're just constantly behind a laptop relying on nobody else, there's no room for you to have that breakdown and need that cuddle when you're crying. And that's going to happen. As humans, we experience the lows and the highs, and we can't always be our own best friend. Sometimes we need an actual best friend to come over and support us. From what I'm observing, this girl boss narrative, you need to be all about work, you need to not rely on a man, not rely on anyone else, be self-sufficient, be money orientated. This all sounds like toxic masculinity for women, because it's pretending you don't have feelings, it's being all about work, it's about being in your logic mind the whole time and not identifying with your true emotions. I think this is just patriarchy and capitalism influencing women and trying to make them small men, trying to make them fit into the problematic system, when really what should be happening is the system should be changing to make women feel comfortable and allow space for their humanity. But I think at the moment, the women that we're celebrating and calling empowered are the women that are adapting to patriarchy and capitalism. Hello beautiful people, I'm Alessia. I hope that you're feeling okay today. If you're feeling a little bit down, I hope this picks you up. I hope it stimulates you mentally. We're living in an era where girl bossism is everywhere. Women are being celebrated if they're working really hard, if they're money orientated, if they're productivity obsessed. Empowerment is now being associated with being a businesswoman, with being hyper independent. And the reason why I use hyper before I say independent is because I want to make it really clear that I celebrate being an independent woman. I want to have my own money. That gives me freedom to pursue the things that I want to pursue. We live in a capitalist world. Money does create opportunities. We cannot ignore that. But I think the idea of hyper independence is really being perpetuated to a damaging degree, because it's now encouraging people to not also allow for their humanness. You can be really independent and self-sufficient, but in my opinion, that doesn't mean you should block everyone else out. I do think we are in this era where women are being encouraged to trust nobody. I don't know about you, but in my hardest times, it's not only been me that's lifted me out of those kind of ruts, it's been my friends, my partner. I think capitalism and consumerism and individualism is behind this particular way of celebrating women. The women that work tirelessly are the women that you need to be. I see so many TikToks these days of people perpetuating the idea that we should be glued to our laptop screens, wearing our girl boss suits, not relying on a man. The women that are driven by business and money are the women that society deems worthy of celebration. And the women that are driven by their emotional needs, by their desire to connect with other humans, are the ones that are silly and embarrassing. As humans, we are biologically wired to be social, to want to find our place in community. So many of us are having to hide this desire we have to feel connected to one another, to feel loved. I really think we're subconsciously taking in the message that we need to be 100% about work, needing and wanting nobody, completely independent. Work is everything. The reason why I use the word subconscious is because I don't think we're actively thinking this and saying this, but our minds are just being filled with this capitalist rhetoric that we should be all about work, that we should be these kind of working robots without emotions. Our subconscious does dictate how we act consciously, how we treat ourselves. the messages that we've got stored back there do influence us and our relationship to ourselves and how we view the world and the people around us. So I think it's really important that we take the time to unpack what's back there. And what's back there might be quite a lot of shame related to being human. So for the last few weeks, I've been enjoying these mental performance shots that Magic Mind have sent me. They really feel like a part of my routine now. They're a little gift for my mind and body each morning. It honestly feels like a really easy thing to do to take care of my body every day. The mental performance shots allow you to think clearer, they reduce stress, and they have over 100% of our daily vitamin C and D in each bottle. If you're interested in my special discount code that will get you 48% off your first subscription in the next 10 days, use this code, Alessia20, capital letters. It's on the screen now. Thank you, Magic Mind. I also think as a result of girl bossism becoming this really heightened, glamorized thing, we're feeling guilty for resting, for not being productive. We should be working tirelessly behind that laptop until we're fully independent women. Of course, it's really hard to rest when you haven't reached that, when you don't feel like you're completely self-sufficient. I don't think we're ever going to get there because, as I said earlier, we're wired to rely on others, to want to be in our community as humans. So we're never going to feel like we don't need anybody else. So we're always going to kind of feel guilty for that. But I think there's real power in being able to trust other humans and be vulnerable with other humans and allow other humans into our lives. I think that is a beautiful thing that we should celebrate, not try to avoid. Avoiding that is avoiding our humanity, is avoiding one of the most beautiful things that can truly add to our lives and make our lives deeply fulfilling. The idea that we need to be super independent and rely on nobody and be all about work is so dehumanizing. I think as a consequence of the kind of glamorization of the independent woman, particularly online, we're learning as women, as young women, that we need to feel embarrassed and silly for trusting in other humans. We shouldn't need other humans, we should only need ourselves. I think that's the kind of message that's being really pumped out there. I fall victim to it sometimes too. Sometimes it's quite nice to kind of watch a video where someone's saying, trust yourself, you've got your own back. You don't need anybody else because look at you, you're a strong woman. I get that that can sometimes really resonate and make you feel good. And I don't want to take away from that. I just also want to point out that it might make you feel bad too. If you don't feel like you've got your own back, if you need somebody else to support you right now, I think you should lean into that. I don't think you should judge yourself for wanting that outside support. Sometimes we don't have our own back. Sometimes we're not going to be self-sufficient. Sometimes we might run into money issues or be in a sticky situation where we need to let other people in and ask for help. I think it's getting harder to reach out to people and ask for help the more we're kind of being fed this girl boss, independent woman rhetoric, because it's adding this pressure onto us to have it all together and not need anybody else. We're learning to associate business and money and being behind a computer as, you know, the cool thing to do, the empowering thing to do. If you're just constantly behind a laptop relying on nobody else, there's no room for you to have that breakdown and need that cuddle when you're crying. And that's going to happen as humans. We experience the lows and the highs, and we can't always be our own best friend. Sometimes we need an actual best friend to come over and support us. From what I'm observing, this girl boss narrative, you need to be all about work, You need to not rely on a man, not rely on anyone else, be self-sufficient, be money orientated. This all sounds like toxic masculinity for women, because it's pretending you don't have feelings. It's being all about work. It's about being in your logic mind the whole time and not identifying with your true emotions. I think this is just patriarchy and capitalism influencing women and trying to make them small men, trying to make them fit into the problematic system, when really what should be happening is the system should be changing to make women feel comfortable and allow space for their humanity. But I think at the moment, the women that we're celebrating and calling empowered are the women that are adapting to patriarchy and capitalism. I don't want to live in a world with patriarchy. I think we should be able to be whoever we want and be respected. I don't think we should have to be like men. This kind of hustle hard and rely on nobody message is really out there, and I think it's being framed as woman empowering. I really don't blame, by the way, women that are putting out videos saying, oh, I'm an independent girly, or I'm a girl boss. I don't blame the women for using these terms, because the terms themselves aren't inherently bad. I just think they're now turning into this new phenomenon where we're only celebrating women that are financially successful. I think it's just turned into this promotion of capitalism yet again. I don't know the origins of these terms, but I do know that a lot of women will be using them to try and compliment their friends or to try and make themselves feel good. I don't think we should be cancelling people that make videos on how to be a girl boss, because they're just women trying to empower themselves and other women. They might be slightly misguided, but that doesn't mean that they're not trying and they're not on the kind of right side. I don't think we should be fighting within our own kind of community of thinking. I think we should be trying to question patriarchy and capitalism, because that is what has made girl bossism really quite problematic and unfair and dehumanizing for women. This is not about policing women to do better and to do feminism better or whatever. It's about just being critical of what we're consuming and how things can shift into a bit more of a capitalistic patriarchal judgment pressure. Of course, capitalism benefits from this idea that women who are workaholics are admirable. It makes us more compliant workers. It makes us feed into the system that is ultimately very problematic. And of course, this has had a knock-on effect and meant that our more human desires and feelings are being disregarded and seen as silly and weak. Of course, many women want to feel like they don't need anyone else and that they don't care and that they're their own best friend and that's all that matters. Of course, women want to attach themselves to that identity because that's what's being celebrated at the moment. And the opposite end of that is being somebody that cares, that is emotional, that feels, that wants to feel loved. That's just not part of what we're celebrating right now. Even in the kind of early 2000s, women who wanted to be in a relationship, who cared about love, who spent their time thinking about love, were seen as the desperate women, the embarrassing women. The films were laid out so you could just judge them and laugh at them. So really get why we're now moving so far away from that, and we're now becoming these girl bosses that are more attached to our laptops than we are other people. We don't need love. We're in our girl boss suits, running our businesses, making millions. I don't care about my relationships. You let me down? Okay, I'll let you down back. I don't care. I'm not saying, by the way, everybody who uses these terms thinks like that, but do you see how things can spiral out of control and other messages can then be perpetuated off the back of this kind of thinking? I really do blame capitalism for making life this competition to be rich and important. And I realise that I actually, in a lot of my videos, criticise capitalism. And I would love to share my kind of solution to that, my alternative to that in another video. So definitely subscribe if you want to hear my thoughts on that. I'm still kind of researching and educating myself, because I don't want to just complain and point out what's wrong in society. I also want to provide answers and solutions, and yeah, I plan on doing that on this channel. I really do believe we need to be critical of the society we live in order to liberate ourselves from all the oppressive messaging and stereotypes and expectations. But we're not taught to be critical, to be independent thinkers. We're taught to be compliant. When we're kids at school, if we're being taught to be compliant and to do our homework on time and to wear the right uniform, then of course we're going to be really great workers that just do what they're told and that don't question the hierarchy. Of course we're going to bow down to our boss. We're really not taught to be critical. We're taught to just follow, to copy and paste. I think that really does serve patriarchy and capitalism. So I really want to encourage you to do what I've been doing ever since I did sociology A-level, to just start asking why. Why do I need to be a girl boss? Why do I need to abide by these gender norms? What is gender? Just start asking why. In our history as human beings, positive change hasn't happened off the back of us copying what everyone else is doing by following the status quo. Positive change has happened when we've done something different and showed that we can live life in a different way, in a more peaceful way, in a more loving way, in a more accepting way, in a way that allows space for our humanity. I think we're being sold this idea of happiness by capitalists, by people that benefit from the structure of our society. I think we're being sold the idea that economic independence and being like a man and being really self-sufficient is the route to happiness. I think we're being sold the idea that we will be satisfied and happy when we have enough money. Although there never really is enough money, is there? Because that's why millionaires always end up striving for more and more to try and be the billionaires. And even the billionaires are not happy. They're doing all these crazy things and spending their money in places where they really shouldn't, because there's so much they could be solving on planet Earth. But anyway, I digress. We're being sold the idea that men have been sold for a very long time, that the route to success and happiness and fulfillment is through money, is through being not emotional and vulnerable, but through being strong and logical. Obviously, we live in a capitalist world, so money does allow us to buy things, to live. And I don't want to hide that. You know, we should be empowered to know what to do with our money, know how to invest, know how to save, know where our money is being held, in what type of bank account. I think that is really important. But that's not happiness. I don't know about you, but for me, I feel most content when I feel close to people, when I feel understood, when I feel held. Because in those moments, I feel super present. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this guy was talking about how we feel the best when we're just really present in the moment, when we're not thinking about the future or worrying about the past. And I really am able to be present in the moment when I'm with people, when I'm experiencing something with another human being, when I'm chatting with somebody and sitting opposite them and being in their kind of energy field. I really feel so present in those moments. And that's just such a blessing for me, because I spend a lot of time behind a laptop screen, actually doing a lot of work, hustling, and I'm not present in those moments. It's quite hard to be aware and present in your environment, in your body, when you're glued to a laptop screen. We really do get bombarded with images of women or videos of women in their girl boss suits attached to their MacBooks working. And I think subliminally we're being sold the idea that these women are happy because of that. I'm just going to read something out to you that I found that I thought was really interesting. There has been a shift from a cooperative mutual support system to a money market-based goods and services provider system. This means that people stop relying on others and start relying on economic stability as a support system. People realise that they believe money is the primary source in their life. As long as they're receiving that money, they will be complete. I don't want you to be some kind of like working robot or this person that cannot express their emotions or be in touch with their vulnerability. I want you to be able to be yourself. I want you to be able to phone up your friends when you're crying. I want you to be able to rely on your partner if he's willing to support you in this time when you're unemployed. I don't want you to feel ashamed for relying on others. I don't want you to have to feel like you have to go at this alone. That's such a scary place to be. I'm making this video because I was so taken by the allure of this independent woman life to the point where I wasn't allowing other people in, and that was stopping me from becoming an independent woman, ironically. We can let other people in and accept other people's support, and that can help us on our journey to becoming independent and self-sufficient. In the world that we live in, where we're seeing quite quick form content and information, a lot of the nuance gets missed out. And then these ideas start to really grow in popularity and the nuance gets lost. That's why I love YouTube. It's just longer form content, so it allows for more detail and more complexity. We do live in a world where complexity, I think, is being left out quite a lot and forgotten a lot in the pursuit of quick form content that people engage with. We live in a world where people's attention is really being fought for. If your goal is to be your own boss or to have a successful business, I think that's wonderful, by the way. That's been my goal. That still is my goal. But I'm now allowing myself to have goals like I want to be out in my local community more. I want to be around other humans more, not on my own, attached to my laptop. I want to be more vulnerable with people and let people in more. I think these are the kind of goals that there's not much space for in this capitalist society, and there's not much celebration for. I think the fact that I'm able to express those goals is really powerful and something that I should be proud of, because it's quite hard to express those needs. I think for so long women have been taught to be the dutiful mothers, to be the wonderful wives cooking the delicious meals, to serve others, to be the nurturers, the carers. For so long, women were in their place in this particular way. I think we were so far in one direction that now the pendulum has swung dramatically in the other direction, and we are only allowed to be the complete opposite. We have to be independent women that are not family or relationship orientated, but money orientated. We have to be self-sufficient. We can't rely on a man. We can't lean into our vulnerability, our emotions, our feelings. We have to be strong and logical. I think it's natural that when in society something is viewed in such an extreme that the kind of opposite happens, and it takes a while for us to find our middle point, for the pendulum to find the middle point. But I do believe we'll get there. I think we just need to have these conversations and not cancel each other and call out each other in a really nasty way, but just be like, actually, have you thought of this? And actually, I really want this for myself. I just think it's important that we talk about these things rather than all just following what one person is saying or just not being critical of what we're consuming. It seems that we've had kind of both extremes. You have to be the dutiful wife who stays at home, who's the nurturer, the carer, or you have to be this girl boss in the office that doesn't care about love. I think we are now just trying to find our middle point. I do think it's really great that we're able to have these conversations, that I'm able to post this video, because it's these kind of conversations that allows us to just be more aware and allows us to lean into our kind of critical thinking. And I think this allows us to then question culture. And once we kind of work out sexism out of mainstream culture, we'll allow more room for women to be human. Not this extreme, the dutiful mother, or this extreme, the independent woman who's obsessed with work. And equally, not worthy if she's like this or worthy if she's like this, but just worthy. I just wanted to put it out there that you're not embarrassing or silly if you are working on your relationship right now with your partner, or if you're feeling quite lonely and wanting connection with other humans. You're not silly for experiencing that, and you're not silly if you're not a CEO or in pursuit of being a CEO. If you don't want to be a boss, then I don't think you should be judged for that. I don't think you should be judged for not having that ambition. I think being in pursuit of love is a really beautiful thing. I'm looking for love. Now, I do have a partner. I know when I say love, people might automatically assume a partner, a romantic partner, but I'm just looking for connection with friends. I want to meet new people in my local community. I want to know my neighbours. I'm just looking for platonic love, as well as the romantic love that I have. I want to keep nurturing that. I'm just in pursuit of love at the moment. It's actually within our wiring to feel good off the back of feeling close to one another. So I'm allowing myself to be human and to want that. One thing that I did for a long period of my life is I confused my desire to feel close to people for desire to be in a romantic relationship with a man. And I think it's quite easy to confuse that as a woman in this society where we're being fed this idea that we need to find Mr. Right and get married and live happily ever after. I think it's so easy to confuse the loneliness we feel with, oh, I need a man, I'm lacking that partner. Maybe you are, and maybe that's something that you want, but maybe you also just want to keep your door open to love in general. Platonic love, romantic love, whatever shows up, love in any form is fulfilling. I actually find the love that I have with my friends is the most grounding type of love. We do live in such a heteronormative world where we're being sold the idea that when man meets woman, everything is beautiful and great. I know that we're being sold that idea, so I know it's really easy to think when you're feeling lonely, when you're wanting to spend time with someone, that needs to be a man and in a romantic sense. But maybe you're just craving human connection. And maybe you just want to feel close to somebody and be your authentic self with somebody and feel safe and understood. And maybe that could be in a romantic sense, but it could also just be with your family or with your friends. Whilst I do think younger women in particular are being sold the idea that they need to be self-sufficient and a girl boss and need no man, whilst I think that's definitely becoming more of a prominent thing, I do think some of the older rhetoric, you need to find Mr. Right and be, married and be happily ever after with that man. I think some of that messaging is still lingering and still in the back of our subconscious, probably from the films that we watched growing up. And that kind of thinking really makes us obsess over one type of love. But there are so many different ways that we can experience love. I really hope you enjoyed that video, my lovely. Please subscribe, please check out Magic Mind, and please share your thoughts with me in the comment section. I'm very aware that I'm sharing my thoughts with you most weeks, and I spend a good amount of time thinking about these things, but my opinions might change. And I think they do change when I get to hear other people's perspectives, and I really want to hear that. There's this tendency on social media for us to cancel someone if they say the wrong thing, or not allow anyone to change their line of thoughts. But I really want this channel to be a space where we can all add our input and we can all change our opinions and forgive ourselves and learn better things together.